Hey everybody, welcome back. This week we're going to be taking our floor plans and transferring them into SketchUp. I've gone through and already drawn my house floor plans in SketchUp here, and I'm just going to kind of narrate over this, fast forward through some of it, and we'll talk about it. So the first thing that I'm going to start with here is my garage, right? And I got rid of the person at the beginning. I also have removed, or I'm looking at it from the top, okay? Which on the right-hand side of the bar, there's a thing that looks like the like action clapper at the beginning of a Hollywood movie scene. That's how you can look at the top view. So what I'm doing here, I've started like in the corner of my house. I would suggest that you start in a corner of your house as well. And I'm starting with the one-car garage that we have on our house here. And I've just drawn the interior dimensions of that one-car garage. And now I'm searching around trying to find the offset tool, which actually is in the push-pull tool menu underneath right there, actually. So there's the offset tool. I'm going to grab it. My house is built in the 60s. So my house has 2x4 exterior walls. If your house is built probably like in the 70s, 80s, or beyond, you might have 2x6 walls in between or for your exterior walls because there's more space for insulation. Um, 2x4 walls are perfectly strong enough to support a home, but the bigger the stud is, the more insulation space you have, the more energy efficient your home is. For this activity, I might suggest that everybody stick with 2x4 walls, which they're actually going to be about 4.5 inches thick. Because if you think about a wall size, you have your 2x4, which is technically 3.5 inches wide. Then on one side of that, you're going to have 1/2 inch drywall typically, and on the opposite side of that, you're going to have 1/2 inch drywall typically. So it's going to be all of your partition walls inside of your home. They're going to be 4.5 inches wide. Um, and I, again, would stick to that 4.5 inch wide dimension for the exterior walls as well. It's just going to make things easier as you go along. So at this point now, I'm starting to get into the point where I am drawing my office and trying to figure out like what I'm going to do here. Okay, so at this point here, I'm going to start drawing my office, and also I think that I go like all the way into my kitchen at this point. I've somewhat of an open floor plan between my kitchen, my dining room, our office, and our living room. There is a wall that separates our kitchen from our living room, and our living room is actually sunk down compared to the rest of our house. Um, so when I started that dimension, that's a whole like 37 feet 9 inches from the far end of my office to the far end of my kitchen. I started that on the inside corner of my garage. Notice it's not on the outside corner. There's that offset there. Because now I've taken all my dimensions from inside, so I'm going to offset my dimensions to the outside. And I'm trying to figure out at this point like how to do that. The best way that I figured out how to do that is to click and drag your offset tool to the outside and then simply type 4.5 inches in the distance bin here. So okay, so now it's starting to snap in there, but I've realized that I have a little bit of issues, so I'm going to undo all this stuff and go through the process one more time. Okay, so at this point now I've dragged that out. I have the total length of my um, office, dining room, and kitchen from left to right in that order. But the depth, like the top to bottom dimension right now of my kitchen and my dining room is deeper than my office. My office is tucked behind the garage, where the other two rooms are behind and next to the garage at the same time. So I'm starting to outline the width and the length of my kitchen here. So my kitchen is 13 feet 6 inches across, and it's 11 feet 8 inches down. And my dining room is the exact same distance out as that, so I'm going to just continue with that box here. And again, we're going to go through and offset those dimensions out like 4.5 inches on the outside here. I'm trying to figure out how to join these things together. So I was trying to join together, but what I've realized is that the eraser is the better way to go about this. So I'm going to grab the eraser tool here and erase and erase. So again, like all of these interior lines on this side were just kind of there as a layout mark. And I'm ready to kind of like take this at this point and convert it. Okay, and I'm just going to measure up 4.5 inches from that corner. I'm going to be careful to find the end point, and I'm going to bring that dimension over 13 feet 6 inches because that's the length of the wall that separates the kitchen from the living room, and I'm going to drop it down. To the left of that wall that I just created, there's actually like a couple floating or one floating stair to transition again to like my lower level for my living room, which is only like 12 inches lower than the rest. But we'll show that later on in the process here. For this video this week, we are just working on a floor plan. We're not going to get into any three-dimensional work. We're just laying out the floor plan of our rooms. So this is my living room, which, if I remember right, I actually end up deleting or changing because it's not quite right. The distance that I measured for the width of my living room is not the same length you see as my garage itself. So somewhere a dimension has gone a little bit awry. And I'm just going to kind of fudge my numbers by about 6 inches to make that work out properly. And again, here I go. I'm going to start setting up my dimensions. Now, some of this stuff like that there, those are double walls. That there is a double wall as well, but I'm going to need the exterior wall on the bottom and the partition wall on the right-hand side. So I'm going to leave those behind. Notice how I'm like trying to erase as many lines as I can as I'm going through here. That's going to make life a lot easier later on when we go to extrude our walls upward. So keep your lines clean. I'm going to leave the line there that separates my dining room from my living room, that single line there, because that's going to be my partition between where my first level is and where my second level is. So as we look at this now, as I'm about to pan away here, again, I have my garage. Above that was my office. Then next to that's the dining room. Then next to that's the kitchen. And below all of that is the living room. So here I'm going to drop in my bathroom dimensions, okay? And we're going to start going through a lot of this in a very similar kind of way as we go through. We're going to draw our room. We are going to dimension that. We're going to offset to create the thickness of the walls. And then we are going to move on to like the next room here, erase and move on to the next room. So again, something has kind of gone slightly wrong here, so I'm just going to erase that. One of my dimensions isn't quite right around there. Not that big of a deal. So that room right there is a bathroom, which will be drawn in further detail in like in the coming weeks. My hallway, which connects there. Oh, and I just ran into an issue here, actually. Let's talk about this. So if you get a rectangle that looks like this, where your center point is the center of the rectangle, hit the control button, and that will make it so that you go back to a 2-point rectangle, one on each side. So my hallway is 10 feet 2 inches, and it is 3 feet 10 inches wide. I have wide hallways in my house. So I have that laid out. It also lays out really well with my wall next to it, so my dimensions are pretty accurate at this point. Your dimensions are not going to be perfect. We are making some assumptions here about like the thickness of our walls. Like for the most part, again, you're going to have a 3.5-inch 2x4 with your half-inch drywall on each side. But the reality is some houses might have 5/8-inch drywall. Some houses might have 3/8-inch drywall. Half is definitely the most common. 2x4s for your partition walls are the most common, but sometimes things do change slightly. So you might have to fudge a few numbers here or there. Things should be coming out close, if not almost perfect. And here I'm starting to draw my hallway going in the other direction, which I later found out I dimensioned wrong, so I'm going to have to edit that later on. But my total length of my hallway is 19 feet 6 inches. The mistake that I have made here is that I did not start measuring that from like the bathroom wall. Start measuring that from the corner. So right now that hallway is 3 feet 10 inches too long. But I'll go back later on throughout this process and edit that. And that's something that I think that you guys are going to be running into too as we go along through this process. You're going to have to edit the dimensions of things as you continue. You're going to realize that it's not exactly laying out properly, or that you've made a mistake, or that you missed. Like for instance, in my sketch, I kind of completely skipped over the stairs that go into my basement, which is in this void, like in the middle of my hallway. Or to the left of my hallway there. So I'll come back later on and add that in there, along with the closets belong there and other stuff. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here, and we'll pick up towards the end again. So at this point here, I've started to speed the video up to basically 3 or 4 times, and I stop it at a couple spots. But I'm starting to draw my bedrooms, the closets that connect to my bedrooms, and this whole side of my house here. Okay, so here are my bedrooms or my closets. Now, here I have 2 closets. The closet on the right is for the top bedroom. The closet on the left is going to be for the bedroom that goes below that. Uh, each closet is exactly the same, so I just found the midpoint of those 2 lines, and then from there I measured out 4.5 inches divided by 2 on each side, so that's 2.25 on each side, and then drew lines up from there, and then deleted that midpoint line so that my closets were split in half. Um, Down here, I'm starting to draw my bathroom and my kitchen, and this is also the point within my process that I realized that my closet is too long, because my closet should be stopping short of the end of my um, bathroom here, and I realized that again my dimensions were incorrect. So I started to go through and delete here, but then I realized that I deleted everything else, or like the blue underneath of everything. So I went through and made sure to close everything off before I continued to delete. Remember, you can always use the undo tool, which is in the bottom left corner of the document, or Control Z, which is one of my all-time favorite keyboard shortcuts. So I'm starting to draw like where we come into the bedroom, and the closets. I have a closet, like a coat closet off of my hallway right here. My house has more closets than honestly we know what to do with, which is a good problem to have. But that's my coat closet, which is going to come off of the hallway. And then the closets that my wife and I use, right, because this is her master. Um, so we have 2 closets along this wall here, and again, each one of those is equal in length. So I found the midpoint and then measured 2.5 inches off of there. So this giant gap down the center of my house here, that is my my foyer. It is some more closets, and it is the stairwell to my basement. It's all located in like this space that I'm working on right now. So this area in the bottom here, that's my foyer. There's no walls that to block that from like the two sides. There's still that dip into my living room on the left there. So that's why again I'm leaving like one single line there. Later on, I'm gonna press that down like a foot to show us that dimension. Here I'm laying out my closets. My closets are each 2 feet deep. Um, Again, my partition wall, and then that space to the left there that my cursor's on top of right now. That's my closet, or I'm sorry, that's my stairway going down to the basement. So at this point, I've actually, as I'm watching this video, I realized I've forgotten to add my porch to this, which is basically right in front of the foyer there and right next to our master bedroom. So I still need to add that space to this floor plan. But otherwise, the general gist of the floor plan is done. Um, Obviously, there are no doors in here. There are no windows in here. We're going to add all that stuff later on. This is just the walls for my house. If I had a second floor to my home, which I don't, you don't need to do your basement. You're only going to do your living space, basically. If I had a second floor to my house, I would draw that second floor to like the right or to the back or someplace else on the same exact plane as this one for right now, within the same drawing, but like the second floor um, will get drawn as its own floor plan within here, and then later on we'll edit both of those. Okay, so that's all the work for this week. When you're done with this, you can send me a screenshot, or you can go through that process of exporting an image, and you can send that to me to be graded. And then next week, we're going to talk about extending our walls up, starting to make this three-dimensional, starting to add windows. The week after that, we're going to add, well, windows and doors will happen next week. And then the week after that, we're going to start adding things like appliances, start adding bathrooms, and then later on, we're going to add materials. Um, this may not be the last like major project that we're working on for the rest of the school year, but it's definitely going to be the last major project we're working on throughout the rest of the school year. There might be one or two other like mini assignments thrown in there in a couple weeks, but for the most part, by the end of this year, we're going to have an as-built drawing of the home, apartment, condo, whatever it is that you have that you guys are living in. Okay, so good luck this week. Email me with any questions, and we will talk to you soon. All right, bye bye.